I'm poet and writer Kay Spivey. Today's gonna be a little bit of a different video. I wanted to talk about my journey with not eating dairy. So it's only been like 10 months since I posted my video about like why I can't eat dairy anymore. It's been well over a year though since I've had to stop eating dairy for my health, because turns out I'm like allergic. We never really went like in depth with the doctor was also hadn't really seen this before, but in case you need a recap, I will definitely link the video as well. I found out that the reason that I was getting horrific migraines, constant migraines, very painful migraines, frequent migraines, was because of dairy. I had known I was lactose intolerant for just a short while. Like I used to be able to eat all kinds of dairy. Like that was probably the problem, you guys. Everything in moderation. Cut back on your dairy intake now while you still have a chance to survive and be able to eat cheese. That's what I'm saying. Dairy was triggering my migraines, and it was also making me just incredibly ill. So on top of all the symptoms that come along with lactose intolerance, which are all kinds of fun bowel issues, lots of gas, lots of diarrhea, I was also having occasionally vomiting because of that, and then just ungodly migraines, and they were lasting a long time and coming on very quickly after eating the dairy. Like the whole thing is a mess. It was so bad. I was so sick for so long. This probably got to the point where it was so bad in like 2020-ish. Like that was really like the worst year of it. And last year was really when I discovered, in 2021, I discovered that that was the issue, took steps, and have been much healthier since then. Like night and day. I was so sick, you guys, all the time. I feel much better. Not totally recovered from that, but it did fuck up a lot. And to be honest, it probably, looking back at kind of the timeline, I don't think I've talked about this on my channel before. Going into some medical stuff. So if you don't want to like listen to that, I'll put like a timestamp for when we get into the dairy part again. But so medical wise, back in like 2019, I got MRSA. I don't know where it came from. I had started doing doctor's visits to figure out my migraines, which were they were still fairly standard at the time. They weren't like as bad as they have gotten. They were getting worse. And also to figure out my wrist pain because it was really bad. And I ended up going to a hand therapist at the hospital, and I could have picked it up from any of those places. I could have picked it up in just my daily life. Like MRSA is very, very common. But basically, if you've never heard of it before, it's a type of, like, it's a staph infection, but it's one that's really hard for antibiotics to treat. And so, again, this would be a little gross. It would manifest as like, it almost would look like a bug bite on my arm, and it would just like fill with pus. It would be very hot and very itchy and very painful, and a lot of pus would come out. It was nasty, okay? Back then. So I only ever got like 3 different spots of it, and they were kind of as things were going on. I was very, very stressed out that year. It was kind of causing more of that, and there are things you can do to prevent it. I learned all about oregano oil being a really amazing spot treatment for it. So I've never, ever since I started using oregano oil on anything that looks suspicious, I've never had another MRSA outbreak again. But I got essentially like 3 spots when I was figuring out what it was. That was really bad. And I had to take really intense antibiotics during that time to clear that out, and it totally fucked my gut health. I knew I couldn't just eat yogurt at the time because I knew I was having issues with dairy. I was trying like soy yogurts, I was trying all kinds of things to like balance out my gut health. I was trying probiotics, like I was doing everything okay. But it was after that time that it seemed like whatever happened with dairy changed from an intolerance to what is currently my issue, which I guess is more similar to an allergy. I was told to tell people it was an allergy in order to people to understand the seriousness of it, but it's more just like, well, I don't know. It probably affects me more similarly to how people with celiac disease, how gluten affects them, than how an allergy affects people, since an allergy tends to have like hives and things. And that's not necessarily what my issue is. Again, it's just that I get unbelievably ill. But okay. Back to then what the video is actually about, because you didn't necessarily come here wanting to learn about MRSA. Ah, that's fun, right? Anyway, Now I've grossed you out. Mostly what I've learned about not eating dairy in the past year is that there's just a huge difference between not eating dairy as kind of a lifestyle choice and not eating dairy because it will make you extremely ill. Like there's such a difference. And this is a difference that just, I had heard people talk about, especially involving celiac disease or people with really severe nut allergies. I had heard about it and did not understand like the gravity of it, like the severity of it until I was experiencing it myself. And I just think that's probably true of everything. You really don't get it until you get it. You know? I went from sort of avoiding dairy but then having pills on me just in case I wanted to have a little pizza with my friends or something like that, to now I have to read the label of everything I eat. Chips have milk powder in a lot of them. The top ramen had milk powder in it. What was it? It wasn't, I used Maruchan, made me sick. A lot of bread will have dairy in it. It's just anything, if I don't actively stop and read the label, I run the risk of getting a migraine or getting very sick. Like I've thought I was totally fine, checked everything else but eaten one thing, bread usually, without thinking about it, and then wound up with horrible migraines for the next week. Sometimes if it's a small enough amount, it's kind of until it works its way out of my system and then I start feeling okay. If I have any dairy, my alcohol tolerance just plummets. I already don't have a high alcohol tolerance. I found out if I've had any dairy at all, I guess it just like ferments in your stomach if you can't process it at all or something. Because if I have any alcohol, I'm straight to vomiting zone. Like I cannot handle liquor in any way if I've had dairy in like the past month. It is so ridiculous and extreme. It doesn't make any sense. It's pretty annoying. So my main thing has been learning to read the labels, and to read the labels every time. To read the labels until I'm used to a product. And so I've gotten really kind of like, all I eat for breakfast is Kix, okay? Kix cereal. I just buy Kix and I have it for breakfast and I have it with soy milk. That's all I'm eating for breakfast. If I switch it up, it's like some oatmeal that I made from scratch myself with just like water, cinnamon, brown sugar, like things that I've made myself from scratch ingredients that I can trust, or packages that I've become very familiar with and they haven't had any big like marketing changes or anything. Those are the things that I can buy confidently and consume confidently. Anything else, I've got to be very careful. If I want to like get fried chicken, I have to make sure most fried chicken places use buttermilk baths. So I have to double check. I Google everything. If I'm like, I want to stop at McDonald's, actually, what at McDonald's is dairy free, and look at all of the items. And then they're like, well, some places butter their buns. And I have to think, do I want to ask them whether or not they butter their buns, and then ask if they could not butter mine, or do I just want to skip going to McDonald's or not eat while I'm there if I'm there with friends? You know, it's become that kind of a thing, and I think it is hard for people to understand. I've gone out to eat all kinds of times. People are like, oh, should we get this and this? And I'm like, yeah, go for it. Like, get whatever you want. I can't eat that, but you get it and enjoy it. And had people been very awkward. Going out to eat is very awkward. There are some types of cuisine that I know are safe. There's certain types of Asian food where they just do not use any, like usually Thai is really easy because typically they'll use like coconut milk or something if they're using something creamy. However, you have to be careful with the drinks because they use condensed milk in some of them and it makes them delicious, and I can't have that. That would make me ill. Or going out for a burger. I can have a burger. However, if they butter their buns, I can get sick. And so it's every single thing. And so unless even then, even if something is marked vegan on the menu, I still have to worry about like a little cross-contamination doesn't seem to get me too sick, but like a lot could. Butter could if they just don't care. It shouldn't be there if they say it's vegan. Usually if there isn't a vegan option that I can trust, I'll be very wary, because even something like a salad, if I ask for no cheese, well, if there is a little bit on accident, like it's not very good. It's just been a lot of kind of restructuring the way I look at food, I guess. Like going to the airport and thinking, well, I'm really hungry, what can I eat? I can't just grab something because I'm hungry. I can't just like quickly grab something, because if it accidentally has dairy in it, I'm gonna have the most miserable flight of my life. So if I'm looking through all the snack things at the snack store trying to find like one thing that I can have and there's not a lot, sometimes it's safer to go hungry. I've been in that situation a couple times where like it's just safer to go hungry and not eat somewhere because otherwise I'd be really sick. And for a while when I first started on this, I was kind of willing to do that, where I was like, I'll just risk it. And luckily my husband has been just wildly supportive. He's the one who's like, no, you're going to ask them if it has that in it. You're not just going to eat something and not feel good. Like, you're going to find out if you can have that thing or not. And so he really pushed me at the beginning when I was being very stubborn and very awkward about it, because I was kind of just fudging it. Somebody messaged me, it was really, really helpful, talking about how after a certain amount of time you'll no longer crave dairy. And that has become true, but it isn't really like the way I thought. It's more like I started to realize how sick dairy was making me feel and began to associate dairy with feeling sick. So rather than not necessarily craving it, I sort of went the opposite way, where I remember it tasting good, but like if I look at like a cheese pizza, my stomach doesn't want that. My stomach is like, no, that's gonna be really gross and make you very sick. So I've started to associate it with not good things. So that has made it easier for me, honestly, like associating dairy and cheese and cheesecake and milk and things with feeling ill has helped a lot. So I don't want to reach for them. The other thing that's really helped is just figuring out different lifestyle choices, like figuring out different things. I had started off using Coffee Mate creamer because the only milk product in it is casein, and for a while I wasn't having any issues with casein. That's not the case anymore. The case is out now, not casein. Coffee Mate creamer was starting to cause migraines, so I had to get rid of that. And in its place I found that there's an oat milk that works really, really well as a creamer. I use Silk's full fat, extra creamy oat milk, and it's been working fantastic. Actually, it's been a really good substitute. I don't think it has a super oaty taste. It has not quite the same richness as using like a full creamer would, but it has that substance and it's been really, really good. I love soy milk, honestly. Like, that's been easy. In terms of cheese kind of look-alike things, like cheese substitutes, there aren't a lot of good ones. The one that I found is Chow brand American style cheese, and that's actually, there's a shredded version that was really good on pizza. That is the first thing. It's not a mozzarella, it's just like their original. Fantastic on pizza. It finally fixed my pizza urges, because the mozzarellas, you guys, fake mozzarella is disappointing to say the least. It'll either taste right or have the right like mouthfeel and texture, and it cannot do both. Cream cheese has been the same. I simply stopped eating bagels with cream cheese. I just threw that out of my diet, and I no longer have that because I wasn't finding anything that worked for it. Instead, I got super into K-pop last year and I started looking into Korean food. Now, Koreans love their cheese, and that's an issue. They really like cheese on things. But the other thing that they really love is like fermented foods and vegetables and things that it's been really fun, like experimenting and learning to cook and make different Korean dishes, because a lot of them don't have dairy in them and a lot of them are also super healthy. Pro tip, if you're trying to diet, I figured out the entire, like I big brained dieting, okay? Because I did try dieting for a while and it's not for eating less is not for me, okay? Counting calories is not for me. You know what is for me? Overeating, but of things that have almost no calories at all. So like, you know like those big English cucumbers? You can eat a whole one of those and it's like 40 calories. That's negligible. You can just not even write that in your book. Things like that. Koreans have figured that out. All of these little like fermented or seasoned vegetables, and you can get a couple different ones and eat just a ton of them. No calories at all. Brilliant. I need to eat until I'm so stuffed I'm not even thinking about baked goods. That's the key. Just if you're ever trying to diet, that's the key. Koreans have figured it out. Things that have been harder to do, Indian cuisine, if I make it at home, Obviously not gonna taste as good as a restaurant, but if I put in the effort and make good Indian cuisine, I can enjoy that at home. But if I go to a restaurant, ghee is in most of their dishes and I can't have that. So I had to give it to that. Can't go to diners, they tend to use a lot of milk and butter. Honestly, there's just so many things. Eating out is a struggle. If I don't know for sure that the food or the restaurant is something, either gonna have vegan options, because vegan is the only one I can trust. I can't trust it if it's vegetarian. There was probably butter slipped in somewhere, even though I can eat meat and eggs and all the other things. Like, I'm not vegan diet. I did try to go vegetarian previous to all of this, and I just kind of threw that out. As too many things. If I can't have anything on the dairy spectrum, like I'll eat meat. Although again, vegan options are usually very tasty. I really like them. I'll often choose those and eat those instead. And I'm definitely eating out. Or if I know like Chinese food, it's gonna be a rare day when Chinese food is gonna have some kind of dairy in it. So I know I can eat that. Japanese is another one. Very rarely has any dairy. So if we go somewhere like that, like if I go out with friends, I can confidently order on the menu and I don't have to worry. That has bit me in the butt before. I've had some delicious panang curry and not felt good afterwards, even though panang curry should not have any dairy in it. But you know, these things happen. Cooking at home has really been the main key for me. Trying to make sure that I'm eating things. And again, it turns into like I eat really repetitive things. Like I used to have kind of a foodie mindset that was very like, try everything, and now, especially if I'm eating by myself, I do eat kind of the same things over and over again. Like I'll get into little kicks where I am only having rice with an egg and kimchi. I will do that a lot sometimes. Sometimes that's the clue where I need to maybe talk to someone about my mental health again. I've changed my relationship to food. Things that I found that didn't have any dairy in them, like Pop-Tarts or like Kix cereal. Like, yeah, Pop-Tarts, you guys. They're like brown sugar Pop-Tarts. I bought a whole bunch of them because they didn't have any dairy in them, and sometimes I just want something like that. So I didn't eat Pop-Tarts since like college. It's been a while. Looking up things to try and make myself feel better has really helped too. Like trying to find brands of chocolate. Unreal brand chocolate is very hard to find here. It's so expensive to ship. If you live somewhere near somewhere that has Unreal brand chocolate, you are so lucky. It's really hard to find around here, but they make really good mimic recipes for popular chocolate treats like Snickers and Mounds and peanut M&Ms. They had my peanut M&Ms. That was probably the one thing, that was my favorite. I could eat one of those big things of peanut M&Ms until you like made me stop or the thing ran out. I loved peanut M&Ms, and they make a really good substitute that just doesn't have any dairy. Unreal is a great one. I highly recommend them if you're looking to go dairy free but you want some candy. They are the way to go. They were so helpful. Finding things like that, or like popping my own popcorn, because then I can do it the way that I want and use margarine instead. Like a lot of things, it just helps to be able to make your own food, and that's not always the way you want to go. So finding those brands that have put in the extra effort to make things that I can have, Oreos I can eat, you know, that's really been the biggest help, is getting away from craving dairy and then finding things that replace it has been really helpful. And it's been really helpful with just like my mood in general towards food. I get it's been very depressing, like baked goods. I loved baking. I really loved baking, and it was so hard to find a butter that would both cook correctly and would taste correct. Like baked goods no longer tasted the way I remembered, and it wasn't really a matter for me of forgetting the taste, because that wasn't what I was going for. Like getting used to the new taste wasn't really the thing. And so slowly I've gotten back into different treats and baking things and doing it from a vegan recipe or from a dairy-free recipe, rather than trying to make the things that I was making before and trying to force them to be dairy-free. So I've gotten used to that, trying different things, slowly getting back into things like baking that were things that brought me joy before, but then kind of caused a lot of depression and stress because I couldn't have them and they weren't tasting right anymore. like getting beyond all of that has been really, really helpful. And finding new things like the Unreal candy, I can't even explain to you how much it helps to be able to eat some chocolate that I know is safe for me, and just have to have a candy bar and know it's okay for me to eat when I can't do that for most things. I mean, heck, where I work, we've got some candy bars. People ask, oh, are they good? And they're like, yeah, people seem to love them. I'm like, I can't try that and let you know. I can't try anything. Well, it's also nice to know, like, if I see an Unreal brand thing, that I can just have that. Whereas I'll sit and look through all of the candy bars in the aisle, and they're all got some kind of milk derivative in them. Just like, I know that makes it taste good, but it makes it so I can't have it. So I'll look through like 20 and can't have any of them. That just doesn't help your mood when what you're looking for is a candy bar, you know? That's been hard. Getting used to going out to eat with people has been hard, especially when people just don't quite understand the severity, or don't think about, there's so many things you just don't think about that have dairy in them. That's really the issue. All the things you don't think about having dairy in them, it's not just that that they've got cheese or something, but that there's butter baked in, or they use milk powder, like things you don't think of like that. There are so many of them. Now that I have to think about it, it's insane. Now that I have to think about it, it kind of highlights how much I wasn't thinking about it before, like how much I was just eating things because they tasted good and not really thinking about it. Now seeing friends be like, oh, can you have this? Like, you just don't think about things like that, and then once you have to, it's an everyday thing. It's kind of exhausting, to be honest. I'm making the video though not to be depressing about it, but to be like, I'm getting used to it though. It's become normal. It's become something that I can manage, and it also no longer I think I was like, I felt obligated to eat with people. It felt very social to eat with people, and now I don't feel guilty as much anymore just refusing food. And I think that was something that really bothered me before, is that I did not want to refuse food from people. And now, because I have to, because if I don't know for sure what's in the food they're handing me, I can't eat that for fear of feeling sick, I feel a lot better about refusing food. And so it kind of feels like I've learned how to create a boundary too. And I'm so bad at that. Like, I'm so bad at letting people know what I need and like creating boundaries with people. And so having something where like I just don't have a choice, like I can't eat that, has helped a lot in that regard. And I think that's been one of the like nice takeaways. I don't know, just a different relationship with food. A different relationship with kind of letting the world happen around me. Does that make a lot of sense? I don't know if I'm getting too philosophical about just like not eating things, but honestly, like I would just eat whatever. If people ordered something, I'd just eat it. Even if it was something like I hadn't liked in the past. Like I was trying to branch out and eat anything. I have tried, my husband loves chicken feet. I've eaten them. It's a little creepy to actually like eat it, but it does taste good. I just don't like the process of eating it. Any type of offal, I've had it. But like I would just eat things. If people wanted me to try something, I would just try it. And now I really have to think about it and again, like establish clear boundaries. Like, yeah, we can go out to eat, but if I can't eat anything, you've got to be okay with me just sitting here, because I won't just order something for funsies. I'm not going to just do that. I'm not going to just eat what you got because it might be okay, because it won't be okay. There is such a difference between an intolerance and like not being or a lifestyle choice. Well, there's a huge difference between a lifestyle choice and an intolerance, for one thing. Lifestyle choice doesn't make you ill if you accidentally eat something. Intolerance makes you very uncomfortable if you don't eat something. What I've got going on over here is full-on illness. Being extremely, extremely ill for a long time. And like, they're not the same. And I'm accepting that. And I'm accepting that I just have to change what I'm into eating, and what I can eat and what I will eat. And people around me have been really, really supportive about it. You know, they don't have to change what they're eating, but that they support me and me eating it has been really, really helpful. And I think that's what's the alternative though, right? Because the alternative is I'm horribly ill all the time and they have to deal with that. So it is nice that they make it easy by trying to accommodate me and have things for me that I can eat. So or changing up the menu so that there'll be things on it that I can have. And it's really nice, and I appreciate it. I appreciate a lot the support that I've had, but also it's just been nice getting past the point where dairy is something that I miss. Like, I no longer miss it the same way. Like, there are things I'd love to just be able to order a pizza sometimes, but I know that the only pizza I can have is pizza that I make specially myself. And so there is still that, like, it's almost become like a nostalgic miss. I'm like, wasn't it nice back in the day when I could just order a pizza for dinner rather than having to make something or to get something that I already know that I can have. It's more of a nostalgic miss rather than like missing the taste of pizza or like actually craving pizza and being like disappointed that I can't have that. I don't have that anymore with like cheese and things. Or even like a milkshake. Like, I don't miss it in that way anymore. I'm not necessarily, there's a lot of things I'm not like trying to find vegan alternatives for anymore, that like I'm just good not having any more mac and cheese. Like, I didn't used to like mac and cheese when I was a kid anyway, so I don't need it. Sometimes it's fun to try things if someone's like, oh, this vegan recipe is like really close. It's like, okay, I'll try it. It's never gonna be cheese, and that's fine. And I'm not as disappointed as I used to be. I'm not as sad. It's sad, a lot of baked goods that I can't have or that are very different, but I'm getting used to that as well. I'm getting used to just how many options there are for other things, and seeing food as something that I need to be mindful about because I have to be. It's been a good journey, honestly. Like, it's better to be on this journey of doing away with dairy in my diet than the alternative, which was not knowing and being horribly ill all the time and trying all kinds of drugs and like messing myself up. Like, now I'm doing so much better than I was then. Apparently what I've got is not common. My doctors were surprised when I told them I found out that this was what was causing it, and that it was a trial and error kind of thing, where I talk about it in the other video, but I was like, there has to be, I must have cancer, I must have parasites. I knew there was something wrong with my gut because it was causing issues. But just realizing I had to get rid of dairy, and then noticing along the way all the times, especially that I didn't know I was eating dairy, and then looked back and found dairy and things I was eating and was like, ah, so it was you again. You were causing me to not be able to get up off the couch. The doctors didn't really expect it. And so it's something that like I hope someday there'll be like a better name than just I'm allergic to dairy. Because right now, that's what I tell people is I'm allergic to dairy, even though it presents differently from an allergy. It just, there's not like something else I know about to call it to help people understand the severity, because I am not lactose intolerant. That's not what happened. That's not what's happening here. But if you're happen to be going through something like this where you're like having to change your lifestyle in order to accommodate illness, in order to prevent illness, like, I feel you, I see you, I hear you, I can talk to you about it, or like talk to me about it, because it's not easy, but there's a good side to it too. And once you sort of get past how hard it is and get over to the part where you start to realize that there are things you can do, that there are alternatives, that there are amazing people out there in the world. Like, honestly, the vegan community has done so much for the people with food difficulties of any kind. Like, honestly, as much as we like to like publicly be like vegans are kind of annoying and there's a lot of like self-righteousness, the community for food has done so much, and there are so many good options because of them, and there's so many just different options out there for you. Like, you can find something, you just put in the extra effort and you can find something you can eat, and you should be allowed to comfort yourself with foods, even though I know they're a little more expensive. Like, for taking milk out of a recipe, for taking a whole ingredient out, man, is chocolate a lot more expensive without it in it. Like, that's all from me today. I just wanted to share that because it's been a little over a year now, and I'm just doing a lot better. I'm not sick all the time anymore. And that's a place, like, if you're kind of person who is suffering an illness and it turns out it's brought on by food, which is the dumbest thing, but if it is, because everything's connected in your body, it turns out. Like, there are so many things that what's going on in your gut is causing other issues elsewhere. And if you're able to find out what that thing is, target it and get rid of it, I'm wishing you all the best. And I recommend you jump wholeheartedly into that, because the feeling better is so worth not eating dairy. It's so worth not being that sick. And yeah, that's what I had to share today. I will talk to you again very soon. Good luck to you. Good luck to all of us. Bye.